Welcome back to Lit versus Genre, everybody. I am Steve.
It's Jeff.
And here we are, old friends, new threats. What about this spoiler? We have gotten away
Hmm?
from our symbols. That
You're right.
we
We
have
haven't
not
talked
been
about
talking
it in a
about symbols very
while.
much, and this is a moraine
Hmm.
symbol, so a little bit of a spoiler there.
True that. True that. I mean, Marine symbol. I mean, old friends. I mean, I feel like we just know it's going to happen,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know, they saved Perrin. Rand escaped, the castle. I think we all know this is coming. We don't know how soon it's coming, but I almost feel like at this stage it would help somebody read the next one if they were feeling maybe like you did,
Hmm.
where like, where is this going? What is this whole side quest thing? That then you see this title, it's like, oh, okay, cool. So I don't need to keep waiting. It's gonna happen now, sort of thing.
Yeah. I felt like this one was like kind of a really big it's two chapters together again. I guess I'm kind of talking about both chapters, but a really big
Mm-hmm.
reset of
Mm, yeah, we got
what's
a lot to
of
talk
the
about in the next
story.
chapter.
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, okay, so let's get into here. We kind of come back to the
Mm-hmm.
inn. Um
Right.
there is there were a couple times we slipped out of I mean, maybe Rand already knows that
Mm-hmm.
Loliel almost always won at Stones. I
Oh yeah, I just took that as like to show the passage of time of this group, sort of this trio, if you
that
will,
they've been hanging out a
who
long
hangs out in the
time.
library. Yeah, who
Yeah,
chose the library playstones.
I didn't get that sense. I felt like he goes the next day to go check in on the queen, and then he comes back. But maybe there is a greater amount of time going on here.
Hmm.
Also, I felt like later when we get this word explained, I had a feeling like we had heard it even earlier. But am I wrong about that?
Well, I mean, Lowell definitely talks with him about it,
He
when
talked
he
about it
says
in
that
the
he wants to go with him.
previous Lowell chapter.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Well, that was the part that you were like, wait, but the Tavern can bend the pattern, but they can't, and it was like a
Mm,
thing. 'Cause, yeah, like Lowell has that conversation with him, and that's why he wants to follow him.
gotcha. Okay. Yeah, and we get more about that a little bit later
Right, right.
too. I like that there are a ton of cats, right, cluing us
Mhm.
into the little rat spies are all around. I guess they're little rat
Mm,
spies
I think they could be.
before
Yeah, I
their
mean,
little rat backs get broken or whatever.
I feel like it's implied because there's even one part where Rand's like it could be that kind of thing
Mm-hmm.
when they're talking about the number of Rands, but that's like in the next chapter or maybe the end of this one when Moraine is there. Um, but yeah, no, this one, we get sort of the aftermath, right? Like Rand just went through all this excitement, meeting these people he didn't expect to. He gets
Mm-hmm.
back, and I love that Master Gill like totally doesn't believe him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we had Gareth Bryn in your arm wrestling a little bit ago." Um, And so I think that's fun, and this is what Rand would do because he's not. It's kind of like he's made these friends because Matt's being so weird,
Mm-hmm.
right? No,
Yeah. No, that was
but anyway, on to your thoughts.
I man, I don't have a ton of thoughts about this. The
More
gang.
connective tissue, yeah.
Yeah, the gang all shows up. We've gotten the gang back together. I thought it was hilarious that Matt is basically acting like the little girl from The Exorcist. I just that amused me to no ends for
I
some
mean, he's just
reason.
continually trying to stab you. So I mean, yeah, the gang's all back. We're all excited. We're happy. Rand notices little changes, and then yeah, we get the reveal that Matt's something's wrong.
Yeah, and we know it's wrong.
Hmm.
It's his thing. Oh, there's a little bit more Tom's not dead doubt that we're we're fading
I
into the
think he's
story.
dead.
So,
That's
newsflash, everybody:
interesting.
Tom is not dead. Confirmed.
Calling it now.
Confirmed.
Not dead.
Prediction number 500 something.
Of course.
Um. Oh yeah, Perrin keeps looking down. I don't know. Yeah, we just
Mhm.
got everybody back together, and then Morin's like, let's see if I can possibly save Matt. It felt very reminiscent of like, I don't know if I can save Tam. Maybe. I like see Moraine does, which is really good, is you
Can't underpromise.
under promise, over deliver.
Complete over
Boom.
deliver.
Boom.
I did get a little bit of whiplash in the next chapter, but that's more of a next chapter thing.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, this chapter it feels like we got everyone back together. It's nice, and then I think yeah, we reveal the mad thing. So I mean, these are kind of big moments in the story, but they are also, as I said, more connective to the overall plot. Um, but anyway, I, I I hate to keep saying like it's next chapter that there's so much to discuss, but
Yeah, it seemed
um,
like that's been in both the past videos that I've been like, let's get past this chapter so we
yeah,
can
let's
talk
I
about the
mean,
next
good.
chapter.
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's some cool imagery. I love the look of Lan just holding his. Well, one, the way it's described, how Lan moves to catch like Matt when he's stabbing him,
Mm,
or even just the moment where Marine is like get away from him and like physically dragging Nynaeve away from him and everything.
mm,
I feel like there's some cool imagery in that scene, and particularly I like Lan just having a conversation while holding Matt's hand with the dagger, like trying to stab Marina. Like it, obviously, it's got a sort of ridiculous edge to the scene because like, why doesn't he use his other hand or get up or whatever? But I sort of like this crazy person putting all their effort into just one thing, and that shows in a part how crazy they are that they're not doing something more logical to attack.
mm.
So, and that Land just deals with it. But that's just me fanboying. You got someone here before we get to chapter two?
No,
I'm all
I
for it.
think that was fine. I was a little confused. The evil that killed Shadar Logoth, and I guess I can't remember
Mhm.
the exact. The evil that killed the town, she's saying.
Right.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Is in there, and like,
Mhm.
it can come out. Mashadar was the thing that was like trying to get out of the
Mhm.
town and was like, "Oh, bring my treasure out of the town," and then he'd be able to get out. So I guess basically Matt kind of did that.
Yeah.
And I,
Just like in an alternate way.
I think it was interesting. I mean, like kind of said, like the next chapter, it's like the least suspenseful thing ever. That of course Matt's fine
Clearly.
and he comes
All right,
back
so we
in.
are we are to the next chapter. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh, big
No.
surprise. He comes back. But I guess that is like an interesting thing, like his weird weakness now that like he could devolve again at any moment back into like
Right.
crazy Matt, and he has to keep this dagger on him, but yet at the same
Mhm.
time, this is like Mashadar's main way of, possibly getting out and wreaking havoc or something.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting because it's like Mordeth was the guy they met, but Mordeth is like an embodiment of Mashadar, which is the like
Mashadar was
sickness or
the blobby
contagion.
thing, right? That was
Yeah,
the.
exactly, exactly. So, but yeah, so it's all this same like alternate evil spirit, not the dark one, but a different type of
Right.
sort of like kill your neighbor craziness,
And
which
again, just throwing more balls up in the air
oh,
to
which
be able to juggle.
I love it. I love it. Well, I mean, I'm always a fan of like the trifecta, the three battling factions is what I enjoy. But obviously,
Mm,
there's even more of that with the different factions within the White Tower and all that. But to have just a secondary evil that's different than the one that the evil group is afraid of, I think is cool. But yeah, so Matt's kind of got this weakness. I think we're both sort of talking about the fact that Matt comes back so quickly, though, right? Um, that it's like he could die, and then within a few pages, he's back
yeah.
smiling. It was, at least to me, reading again, it was a little anticlimactic. Um, it did almost make me feel like another part to your point in a previous chapter where the
Right, he's trying to get
maybe
those
been extended.
cliffhanger um,
Well,
endings.
that it felt compressed where it could have been extended to me. I
Mm.
think. I think we could have been talking a little longer maybe. But I do. I
I
mean, I
mean, Matt
appreciate
doesn't
him wanting to get to the
contribute a
climax.
lot to the scene except for them to have that kind of warm, glowy reunion thing that they kind of did last chapter with everybody else.
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's right. I would have maybe just kept Matt in bed, I guess, or something.
I mean, I would have brought him in, but maybe I would expect him to come in maybe just a little later. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have expected him to come into the scene, but if he was going to come into the scene, I would think he would come in later. I like when he does. I like how he's all awkward about it, and he's like, finally, he's like, well, you can't blame a guy for something he do when he's crazy, right? I was
Right.
like, no, we can, we love you, man. Like it was, I of
I
course,
can blame you for picking up the dagger, you idiot. That's what
there's that,
that's
there's
me
that.
as Rand.
But it's so warm and fuzzy. I mean, I do like all of that, but it did seem really fast. But yeah,
All right,
for the way it broke down.
so Jeff, here's the part where I feel like the book's becoming self-aware. We are now
Here's the
meta.
book.
It has gone full
Secretly wrote all
meta.
this.
I'm almost feeling like this at reading this part. I was like, okay, so just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. Loyal is glad to talk about the steading. Well, yeah, obviously, of course he is. And though we usually
Right.
seem to think a story needed 200 or 300 years of background to make it understood, I'm like, is this self-commentary? What is this?
It's brilliant. That's what it is.
Well, that's why I
mean,
started
sure. I mean,
wondering.
especially when he's like brief. Brief.
Right.
I sense him like breaking out in sweats. Like I don't think I can do that.
And there's
Channel,
more
like,
later. It just
probably
made me
fun.
feel like, let me see if I can find this, where they talk about, okay, so here we get him starting to go off
Oh yeah, it
on
goes.
speaking. But where do they talk something about like the creator? And Moraine says there is no creator or something like that. Oh shoot.
I don't remember her saying about there no creator.
Oh gosh, I hope I like, or the creator couldn't do something because that would be impossible.
Well, she talks about like because of the way things have all shaken out, she would almost believe the creator is taking a hand to
Yeah,
like
I
help
could.
fight.
Okay, okay. If I
Yeah,
did not know it was impossible, I could almost believe the creator is taking a hand. So she's saying
here's
that's
something impossible
impossible for
then.
the creator to do that.
Yeah, that is
Right.
interesting.
So that was like, and I was like, okay, so now we've introduced this idea of the creator. She's talking
Mm,
about specifically the creator taking a hand in the pattern or making things
right.
happen, specifically to explain this pretty wild now again plot coincidence that
Let's talk about this plot coincidence.
that there's, I don't even think I
This is
fully
for me.
understood this thing, but there's something in the town because the Ogier, when they were
See, if you don't
making all the
understand it,
towns,
you
actually,
can't be mad at it.
wait, say that again.
I said if you don't understand it, you can't be mad at it.
Really, is that how it works? Well, now it's
You
like,
can't fully tell if it's a plot coincidence because you don't quite know what's happening.
I guess that's a way out. Yeah, you can't be like,
Right?
is this a plot coincidence? I don't understand.
I
So
don't
how
even
do
know.
I
I don't even
know?
know what's happening.
There's no way to know if it
I'm
is.
just along for this ride, bro. Like,
Well, so there's like, she's like, okay, change of plans, massive change of
mm,
plans, because now we know about this threat to the Eye of the World. For some reason, I thought the Eye of the World was like just kind of sort of like the pattern itself, sort of metaphorical or something, or like
right, sure.
now I'm like, oh, this is an actual thing or
Hmm.
actual place, question
Right.
mark, or actual something that the Dark One straight up is gunning for, which he
Mm,
maybe kind of stupidly let drop in a bunch of dreams. You know, that wasn't
mm.
maybe really very thoughtful on Dark One, but okay. And now they're like, total change of plans. We're not going to Tarvalon at all. We are going to go to the Blight, which
Yes.
is where I suppose the Eye of the World is, and the Green Man.
Go Green Man.
And we get a lot more capitalizations, which we've also been missing from the book for a while. Like, we
I've
get
been missing them.
the
I have.
Shadow, which is like, I feel like another stab at. I feel like with a lot of these chapters now, maybe he is suddenly going into this mode where he's like, okay, I'm going to do a cliffhanger on the
Right.
end of every chapter now.
Well, I think he's feeling himself. He's only got about 150 pages left.
But these are very much like, also these are like cliffhangers where we don't jump way ahead. Like there's kind
Right.
of this one really no reason, because I was like, okay, cliffhanger, and it's like, okay, we just pick up the conversation
Yeah,
like
no,
right there.
it's literally just a momentary
Yeah,
line.
exactly. So the only reason to do this is to kind of go, ooh, cliffhanger, what's the shadow? Turn the
Mhm.
page thing. Like it feels
Right.
like he's writing more in that mode now that I kind of
True.
pointed out or felt in the falling off the roof sort of way.
For sure. No,
Um,
I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
but anyway, going all the way around to the point that I was making,
Mhm.
she says this right as the literal writer, Robert Jordan, who is controlling all of these events and making
Okay.
these things happen.
I suppose I'll agree with that.
She invokes this idea of the creator having a hand in these goofy block coincidences that are happening. I'm like, this feels to me like a freaking Grant Morrison comic. I don't know how like familiar you are with Grant Morrison, but he's one of my
Not enough
favorite
to go.
comic writers who loves to just literally put himself into
Oh,
the
really?
comic books as, yeah, like one of his very famous early stories is Animal Man. Like Animal Man sort of realizes he's in a comic and he starts being able to like sort of see around the comic and see like into the margins of the comic, and then like he eventually meets the creator of the comic, who is literally Grant Morrison in the comic. And like this, like I was like, man, like everything felt so meta here with Lowell commenting on
Right.
how it takes him forever to tell a story, and we need to have all this background. And then this part, I was like, whoa, Robert Jordan is going to show up at the end of book 14. He's just going to come down and be like, I was behind this all, and it was
I
the
mean,
first fantasy meta story.
I feel like I can't say anything. But I did not know that about Grant Morrison. That is really interesting to hear. And I do get what you're saying. It's almost this thing of like this would explain this crazy coincidence, but it's not the explanation, and
Hmm.
we're moving. So then we're kind of left with, where is it? Is it just a crazy coincidence then? Like what happened?
Well, then
Um,
you can always rely on the pattern. And again, what does she
right.
say about the pattern here?
All the patterns there.
Sometimes
I knew you were
being a
gonna hide that. I
defer
was
means the
waiting.
pattern is
I
forcing
was
defense
waiting.
you. Sometimes it means it's
Yep.
like, wait.
The needed path. The needed path.
Again, it's having it both ways. It's having every time the pattern comes up now, it's like you get it
Oh
both
yeah.
ways. Sometimes it dictates, sometimes
Could
it
do
bends
whatever.
around you. How does it make these decisions? Well, probably whenever the writer needs it to do that.
I do find it interesting that he feels the need to point out the coincidences, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he emphasizes them. For instance, as we talked about, the other big one that at least springs to mind in this book is with Perrin meeting Elias, who is Wolfman, and then Perrin can happen to be Wolfman, and then shows him the path, and then Lan comments on that, like, it's crazy that that's happening, and that you happen to find the right person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then here, right, it's emphasized. But I do feel like this ties to things that we do in our society, where we talk about, and obviously this could be religious or not, things happen for a reason, and obviously a more specific religion. One is, God has a plan for everything, that type of thing. And so I do feel like we rationalize coincidences in some ways, or we'll even say like, oh, this proves it was what I was supposed to do because these two or three things lined up, right? Like, oh, and we like then believe that there was a reason for it. So part of me does wonder. I know it's tough because the pattern's been talked about this entire time, and we've obviously, discussed that. But in this moment, it almost feels like Moraine doing that sort of very normal human thing to do, to be like, I can't believe the way these things are lining up. Like, I want to thank the creator, but I know they don't do this. The thing that is the most fascinating to me, honestly, is if I did not know it was impossible. I think it's interesting that this belief system obviously believes the Dark One can touch things, but does not believe that the creator can truly lend a helping hand, because previously it did feel like the pattern maybe was helping them a little bit, or at least Taviran was pulling to themselves what they needed, sort of thing.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, no, well, this is the first time I remember hearing even the creator invoked or that there was a creator,
mm,
but I might be wrong about
uh,
that because it's been 596 pages. So,
that is fair. That is fair. I do feel like it is mentioned. I mean, it's not as much of a focus as like the Wheel of Time or something like that. I don't even think creator, unless they're under the creator, is in the. I'm checking the back. I'm not seeing the creator, so yeah, it's definitely not. It's not talked about in the same way. Like the pattern is talked about much more of a concrete thing that does affect stuff. The Wheel of Time, the Age is Coming, the Dark One. Those are much more set. The creator is more light is talked about, obviously, Walk on the Light. Um, but it's meant to be, I think, the creator's light. So, but yeah, no, it's creator is not invoked in the same way. You're right about that.
all right. Well, so let me just kind of say about this.
No, go
Again,
ahead.
to me, this felt like a hard reset on the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it again, for as much as there is all this talk of pattern and also that Jordan has this all planned out in advance, this amazing, I don't know, like 800-page outline or whatever he's got for like the whole thing. This does not feel like expert plotting to me. This
Oh
feels
yeah,
like
I
when he
wouldn't call it that.
started writing like we're going to Tarvalon, and
Right.
to me, I would never believe it in his head. He's not like 400 pages ago. Like, oh yeah, we're going to Tarvalon. This is what
Right.
we're doing. And then he gets here and he's like, oh, you know what? Nah, I'm kind of bored with that. Let's let's do this other thing. Oh, how am I gonna get him there without like a freaking interminable forever journey like I've just already written in this book? Oh, here's this random plot contrivance that you've never heard of before that has no setup that is gonna get them there instantly somehow. It feels like, oh yeah, I'm just throwing this out here. It does not feel like expertly plotted, expertly set up the way people in comments keep telling me, look, Steve, this is 14 books. It's all perfectly planned out how it's gonna work. And I'm like, I do not believe you. I do not believe you. I think he's making it up as he goes along.
Well, there's so many ways to respond. The first one is that, at least from what I've heard, I obviously did not speak to the man himself about this or see his secondhand, but as far as I know, he is more of a points on the map writer. So, he knows where he wants to go, but then he's making it up in between those points on the map. So it seems perfectly feasible to me that he could have one of the points on the map be Tarvalon, but as he was making up the way to get there from Gamelin, he was like, yeah, let's go somewhere else, right?
Mm.
For sure. I will say that there are some things that do speak to this being set up. But I would agree that there's not enough of them for it to feel expertly crafted
Mm.
in that regard, like the nature of a plot that you're like, oh, I see how it all fits, right?
Mm.
Like that's not really the nature of the Wheel of Time. The Wheel of Time is more sweeping epic with cultures and lots of characters and magic. It's not the like neatly fit together. It's big and sprawling,
Mm.
right? Like sprawling probably more than it should. Um, but I will say that there are some seeds that, if someone was so inclined, they could argue with the title of the novel being "Eye of the World" #1. So as a not so subtle hint that could end up being important, as we're seeing here a new destination. Also, we did have those stories previously told to us from the Tinker. And so, I mean, obviously we didn't really know what that meant, sure. But there was some seeding. Again, I don't think the seeding is as satisfying as some other writers might pull off, or as even Jordan can pull off in later books, right?
Mm.
Um, this first book, it doesn't feel quite as clean, or it's just there's so much time in between us learning about this random tinker story to hear, right? Or even trying to figure out, okay, so there was this one guy at a studying and there was this other, you know, Farda is my, spear maiden, Aiel. How did they connect? Why did they, where did they learn this information? Were they getting dreams from Balzamon? Is Balzamon just telling everybody his plans? Like, so I think that's more the problem. It's not so much that, I mean, don't get me wrong, there could be more seeding, but I think one of the problems is if you dig into the seeding, it doesn't quite seem to make sense. It does feel like there is some other force that's on their side or trying to help fight against the Dark One, like maybe the Pattern or a weakened creator or something, right? That is trying to send these little hints out for those that'll listen, sort of thing. And I think because we don't have a strong grounding in who or what that other figure would be, then these seeds don't help as much. Last one, real quick, is there has been talk about how Lan and Moraine were really wondering how on earth the Trollocs and Fade got all the way to the Two Rivers, like without being seen, because on the map, like the Blight is way to the north and Two Rivers is, well, not. And so there's these populous areas that they would have to go through to get there. And there has been no, like, people didn't know that there's these huge armies coming through, even around Camelot. There are these big armies. So there has been this
Well,
mystery.
if the idea is that these way gates, whatever
Right.
this brand new spanking
Mm-hmm.
thing is
Appetite.
something that Moraine knows plenty about, well, then why wouldn't she have hypothesized that?
Can you do, I feel like we tried this before. You can't
I
search for a
don't
word in the
think I
entire document, can you?
can, unfortunately. Oh, wait. No, what is this?
Just because I am curious if Waygate ever happened earlier.
Not according to this.
Yeah,
So
because
it
I
starts at
do agree.
597, yeah.
I mean, I think we could again argue that obviously Moraine hasn't been sharing all the information she has, but Lan has expressed his wonder of how they're doing it previously. So
Hmm.
it does seem that Moraine wouldn't have had that conversation with him early on. So yeah, I mean, considering this is looking like it could be a pretty big plot device, I'm not sure why it wouldn't have been seeded sooner.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so yeah, and I think that's all fine. I mean, I don't kind of make that point to like throw shade at anything, but I do
Oh no, throw the
it
shade, bro.
it does
Put us in
feel
the dark.
like
Make it night over here. Like, bring the shadow. Like,
it
it's fine.
does feel like as we're going along, we're like, okay,
Right,
now, well, what I was saying last video, and
right,
then,
right,
and we
right,
just throw in the new, magical plot device that we need at the moment to make that thing
right.
happen, and that's not, and it's not great. It's like a little weak. I mean, it's a reason
Oh, yeah.
to legitimately criticize the story
Mhm, mhm.
and what's going on here.
Listen, I would agree that this, I know I've said it before, but book one has problems,
Mm.
and I think we're, seeing one of those, which is um, that I would agree with your previous assessment of like, what precisely am I looking forward to?
Mm.
Obviously, with Perrin and getting caught and everything, there was something very concrete. We could be like, is he going to escape? Where's this cool bad guy, Bornhold, all that stuff, right? But then for the rest, it was like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, I want to get to see them get to Tarvalon, and yeah, we're seeing some dreams kind of against a bad guy, but it wasn't like there was a specific bad person that's kind of like stopping them from Tarvalon, and we don't even think they'll really be safe with Tarvalon. And even if it was, like, how satisfying is it to just like, and now we're here, end of book one. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So that it doesn't feel great anyway. And so I think that's the thing that people could kind of be searching for as a reading. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you're reading fast enough, if you're just like blowing through this, you're just like, yeah, well, what then happens? What then happens? And then you get there and you're like, to this point, right? And like, okay, now let's see this next thing, right? But if you are, reading it maybe in a more regular pace, or obviously very broken up as we are, and you're really thinking about each part and what's going to happen next, I do agree that there's not a lot that we're like, oh yeah, this is going to be, I can't wait to see this big battle. Like there's no big battle. I can't wait to see this confrontation. We don't know about any confrontation. I can't wait to see Rand learn. Well, we don't even know if he's going to be learning or whoever is going to be learning. We just know we're getting there for safety, right? So yeah, there's not like a standard climax to be excited for. Hmm? And so then this comes in and we're like, oh, okay.
Right.
We've heard about the Eye of the World. Um, I don't really know what it is. I mean, it's been mentioned, yeah. I do think in some ways it can feel like that's random and not satisfying completely to get this part. And I do think this is a very, I don't even know the right word for it. I was going to say odd or risky part of the book. But it does in some ways feel kind of like a necessary evil, since the other path didn't have some cool climax definitively on the
Right.
horizon.
Well, let me
At
let me
least,
say this.
oh, go ahead, yeah, jump in.
The word I would say is it feels slapdash to me.
Yeah,
That said, yeah, like even the things she says, like now that finally everybody freaking told her their dreams for one, thank
right.
goodness,
Finally, right.
idiots.
Finally.
But now that they do that, yeah, like it feels like the stakes that I've been looking for
Hmm.
aren't exactly clear, but somebody
Right.
says that what he literally wants to do, which this whole book I've
Mhm.
been like, what does the Dark One even want to do
Right.
here?
Sure.
Is stop time? Is that what they say?
Hmm.
Like, eh,
Yeah, they're talking about like stopping time
yeah,
and stuff.
stopping
Yeah.
time. And again, I don't know what that means, but something
Sure.
about
It's
just that
specific.
phrase, stopping time, you're like, oh, dang, yeah, that seems major. That seems
Seems
like
bad. Yeah.
something that we should prevent. And it's like, okay, so finally, here are the stakes now that
Right.
he's going to
Right.
stop time somehow. And that's what's at stake, and that's what we have to prevent. And then,
Right.
like, yeah, we have this new place, and you're kind of foreshadowing that this is super dangerous because the loyals like, no, heck
Right.
no, we're not doing that. So you're
Right.
setting those stakes there, and I feel like this
Mhm.
is kind of like he did a hard reset here, and now
Mhm.
we're setting up a story the
Right.
way you'd want
Much
the
more
beginning of the
traditional.
story to actually be set up.
Yeah, this is, I would say, it's becoming very standard in that regard, right? Like
Mm.
we got a bad guy, they want to do something that sounds bad, we got to go stop him. That's scary. We're doing it anyway, right?
I feel like you
Um,
always kind of say standard in a little way that's like derogatory though, or like a way of
uh,
like being like, oh, but Robert Jordan does this amazing other thing instead of what's so standard and
no,
usual. Whereas I am like way more energized by this. I'm like, okay, finally, like we have our
right? No,
stakes, we have our purpose, and like the rest
no,
of the
I
book
don't
has
mean it
been
that
like
way.
splitting up the gang just to put the gang all back together, where it feels like
Mhm.
nothing has happened. They could have all just come here together
Mhm.
in the first place, like, so like this maybe feels more standard, but maybe there's a reason why these things are standard, because
I
they
don't
work a
disagree with
lot
that.
better.
I'm not disagreeing that. I'm just saying that the reason I say standard is because I'm pretty sure that in the past I've said that this is a non-standard book and that
Hmm.
it doesn't give you that here's the thing that's going to happen, like that we're interested in or that we're moving toward in as specific terms as many stories would. This is again much more sprawling and just sort of lived in and slice of life and that sort of thing. I'd say it's more standard slice of life in certain ways, and not sort of a regular action adventure story or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, no, I'm not against the standard by any means. I do think that this invigorates us for the final home stretch of this story. I think maybe if we were to look at the straight bones of it up until this point, and this is what I think is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm enjoying everything we're talking about, but this for me is like really fascinating, right? So we talk about the basic beats
Hmm.
that there's small town, right?
Hmm.
Someone from that small town is a big deal and they don't know it. right? Evil figures this out, descends on the small town, creating chaos. But right around that same time, good has also figured this out and is there to prevent and take them on said journey, right?
Mm.
So I think that is all very compelling. I think we had a lot of action at the beginning, a lot of tension in the beginning, right? Um, and then there was all these other pages, right? Between that and then
Mm.
this moment of, and now we know what the bad person wants to do, and we should like go stop them or something, right?
Mm.
Um, and I think it's that sort of amount of time in between that, again, as we've talked about, someone that enjoys immersion and stuff like that will like, but others will not. And I imagine it's that in between stuff that's going to get largely cut in
Mm.
in, in the show, right? Which is not all bad to speed things up. Obviously, there are some really cool moments with like Perrin and the Wolves or like Rand getting to see Logain, because of potential connections,
Well,
Pat and Fane and stuff like that, Trolloc attack and them running from the Trollocs earlier. But a lot of that stuff in between, it really stretched. It really went on quite a long time.
here's the thing. I think you
Yeah,
can
go ahead.
have your cake and eat it too with this. Like I feel like if you have the stakes more strongly established and you have the goal more strongly established right away, it would have made it a lot easier for me to keep interest through all the
Right.
slice of life stuff. Like, I don't actually see why we couldn't have known right away Darkwood wants to stop time, right? That's
Mm,
revealed through a dream. Rand's first dream, he's like, I want to blind the eye of the world. Rand wakes up, instead of being like an idiot and being like, oh, everybody, let's just keep our dreams to ourselves. He tells Moraine that this is it. And Moraine's like, well, guess what? This is what we're doing. This is what we have to save. Then they get split up, but they're all heading towards their actual goal, which is going
right.
towards the
As a
Blight or
world, yeah.
whatever instead of going towards Tarvalon. Then, I mean, I guess he wants. You could even have this side trip out to Camelin. I mean, just put Camelin on the way to the Blight or whatever instead of to Tarvalon, or put them both in the way of going to the Blight. But then you don't like if they're heading there. Then you don't need this like awkward waygate, sorry, thing like right here just to be clearly plot devicey, like so plot devicey it's kind of ridiculous. But I mean, I don't know. I'm doctoring too much. What I'm just saying is like you can have that goal, you can have the stakes established to
Mm.
give the rest of the narrative that drive, and then you get the time out of that where you can kind of dirtle around with these different cultures and these different worlds. I think the
You know
reader
what?
will give you more
Yeah.
leeway to do it if they feel like, ooh, I really know what's at stake here. I really know where this is heading.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. Like when could this have been revealed instead? How much would it affect the narrative? The main thing to me that comes across is that if this is a really big deal, that the Dark One is doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the Dark One wants Rand and everything, like, is this the best group to go to try and stop that? Is this something that, should Moraine be trying to use the Waygate here in Camelin to get to something close to Tarvalon and get a lot of her sisters to then go to handle this? Like are these young boys the best to be putting in harm's way kind of thing? Um,
Well, again, she
and,
could be like, yeah, we gotta get to. So, what we gotta do is we gotta go to Tarvalon so I can get my sisters to go to
right,
the Eye of the World.
right.
But still, I just don't see why, like, I don't see why you set this up, at the beginning of the book. And here's why because he didn't know. Let's just be honest. He came into this book with one idea of what he's doing, which is just imitating Lord of the Rings. He like read himself up to this point, and then he's like, I gotta do something to bring this home, and now he makes it up now, and he didn't go back to rewrite the beginning of it, and that's fine. But he's making it up as he goes along. it seems pretty clear to me that that's why that happened.
It certainly could be. I mean, we did have Belsman saying the Eye of the World stuff, but it would be curious if maybe in the original draft he wasn't, right?
Right.
Like what if Belsman never mentioned this Eye of the World stuff, right? But at the same time, like you got to think, Lord of the Rings, you've got someone going from point A to point B, but point B is in the heart of the enemy,
Right.
right? Like like that is filled with tension
It's great.
because we're going towards something that's terrible, right? So that has such a built-in weight to it, right? Which is part of its brilliance. Um, but with this, we're just going to like a place of safety, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have that same. The only tension that can happen from outside people trying to stop you from reach a place of safety, or the place of safety not actually being safe like you thought it was going to be, sort of thing. Um, but neither of those to me strike me as obvious climaxes. Like, I mean, if we knew that the safe place was behind an evil place, we had to go through the evil place to get to the safe
Mm.
place. Okay, then sure, right? But that's not been the case. So yeah, I mean, this was always sort of to a degree writing him into a corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, of like, we're going to go to the safe place. Now what? Like you can't just
Right.
end the book on that, right? So now it makes this like swerve, and now we're going to Mount Doom, right? Now we're going to the Blight, the
Yeah.
dangerous place where the enemies are. Um, maybe there's so many possibilities. At least when I think about writing, I don't always end up right what I end up meaning to write.
Sure.
But at the same time, I'm also trying not to recreate things. So I do wonder how much him was like, well, I can't just have him go straight there because I don't want it to be exactly the same, right? Um,
I mean,
let's,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it, man. Like, I don't know. Like, I think there's
well,
a
I mean,
reason why that like you just said, how much tension does that
oh,
supply,
so much,
and how much
right,
narrative momentum does that give you to then go off on tangents
right.
and split up your group like Tolkien
I
does,
think,
split up the group and like, go and
mm,
to this other tower where you have this massive battle and like go up. But because you have that
right,
motor, you can do
driving
it.
everything the entire time.
Yeah.
The more we step back, the more I really do appreciate Lord of the
Oh
Rings.
yeah. I think
It,
it's
like I just propped. Like, and I haven't always throughout my whole life to the degree that I'm feeling in this moment, but it's such an amazing narrative device. And also, the thing is, though, about that one, it justifies itself with this whole idea of the thing they're destroying. I mean, but I'm going to say it I can't imagine a listener wouldn't know. But the idea of what they're destroying is so powerful that it can't be given to the best of the best, right? Like
yeah.
in this scenario, we got the Dark One doing something bad. Send the best of the best, right? Let's get some warders up in this. Let's get some
Right, right.
guy up in this, right? But for Lord of the Rings, it makes sense because the whole thing is you can't give
Right.
it to the best. Or
Right.
then you corrupted the best, and now you got like a second son or a
Right.
general understanding who's just going to destroy everything. You got to give it to somebody who's completely weak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't work here. It doesn't make sense to be like, oh, well, we got to use these farm boys against the against the
Yeah.
greater because these farm boys know how to thresh,
I'm
and
glad you
greater
said
can't,
that.
can't handle that.
I'm glad you brought that aspect up because I want to like go on record somewhere in as many
Yeah.
places as publicly possible as saying like Ewoks are the best. And this is
Oh,
the
yeah,
reason why Ewoks are the best, and all Star Wars
yeah.
fanboys are wrong about Ewoks sucking because you gotta have the
Can't not love
Hobbit,
you.
you gotta have the
Yeah,
young kids
little
who
bit.
have no chance, and you gotta have
Right.
the little teddy bears. Like you can't. It's gotta be just to create the tension and the narrative doubt. I mean, the good guys are always going to win anyway, so you have to like stack it, You have to
Right.
stack the
Right.
odds somehow, and that's why they got to be Ewoks on that planet, man. It's
Well, I
got to
mean,
be.
I
And it
I mean,
seems
I
so
love
clear to me, like the reason I'm taking this opportunity to talk about
do
not
it.
this
Go
book but
do it.
talk about Star Wars is because this is something that is common knowledge that everybody's like Ewoks suck. And I have never disagreed with anything more than that I'm like, how is the whole entire universe brainwashed into thinking Ewoks suck when Ewoks was clearly and obviously the right choice for that point in the movie? Like, it seems so ridiculously clear to me. I do not know how everybody is wrong about it.
Well, I mean, there's so much we could talk about with Star Wars. There really is. But no, I mean, I agree. I think we mentioned this on another. I think this is the second time we're talking about Ewoks in this one, but that's fine. I even love the spin-off movie. I gotta watch it again to see if it actually holds up with like
Yeah.
the sister and the brother and everything.
I'm
But yeah, I
not
mean,
going out on a limb there. I have not seen it
you know,
since I
do
was
it, Steve. Say
like
it
7, so I
on
don't
record.
know.
No, that's fine. I'm not gonna hold you to that. But I do agree that yeah, you know the good guy's gonna win. So stacking against is great. I think what's brilliant about the Hobbit again is that you're justifying using them. And again, same deal with Star Wars. It creates a similar feel. And you just can't do that in the story. Like I mean, I want the story to be about farm boys. I want it to be about these kids that don't know anything that gain power slowly over time. Like I am so down for that story. But yeah, I don't even know what the ending should be that would actually make sense. All I can think about is like, yeah, there would have to be something else that's stopping them from getting to Tarvalon, or they get to Tarvalon, but then something really bad happens that they got to overcome, and then like escape or something.
Yeah.
But this I think is clearly the like, oh wait, we got to go stop this thing, and yeah, it kind of works, right? Like it works in that, yay, this is something for us to look forward to.
hmm
Let's go up against these crazy guys. Let's
hmm
take it to their house instead
hmm
of them coming to us all the time. So I think that feels great. But in terms of like an overall plot, yeah, I do agree that it's on the weaker end
Uh,
and feels
oh
selfish.
yeah, the
Yeah.
other thing that I was like slightly unsure about is does everybody know about this Eye of the World thing? This place? Or what
Um,
I'm still a little vague on like what it even
I
is.
mean, so like it's been mentioned, the Eye of the World, by Osman, right?
Well, yeah,
Um,
but I mean like just in the universe. Is this like
and
a common
no, it
knowledge type
doesn't seem to be
thing?
something that's talked about a lot, which is weird to me. It is. Even though it's been mentioned, again, when you got a book that's this big
Yeah.
and so many things have been mentioned, it it makes it hard to feel like, oh yeah, that was talked about, that was seeded. You know what I mean? I feel like you got to seed more
Well,
because
I guess I'm not talking. I don't mean this so much about like whether it was seeded or not. I'm talking about like whether. So when the Tinker
does a
people
regular
gave
Joe
that
know about it?
story, and like did the
Oh,
Aiel lady say like blind the eye of the world, or that phrase coming up, blind the eye of the world? Would that have meant stuff
the
to?
Tinkers didn't know what that meant.
Right,
I
right.
think
And it kind of felt like
Lowell,
Elias didn't know. It felt like nobody
yeah, Elias didn't
knew.
know.
And
Nobody knew.
okay,
Lowell knows because he's studied,
right,
right?
okay,
But then Lowell asks, could that really happen? Right? Like he
gotcha.
does seem to make some sense of it.
All right.
Where's that line? But yeah, regular people, I would say don't.
So,
Yeah, because he asks, can he blind the great serpent?
hmm.
I mean, no, he does
I
also say,
took
what does it
all
mean?
of that metaphorically.
Yeah,
Now I think
he
there's a
does.
giant snake somewhere, and if he gets
Well, that
blinded.
is the eye of the world, right? I mean, the snake is interwoven into the wheel in the. Do we have that picture?
Yeah.
It's on the map, right? So the snake is woven, so then it does.
Also at the end of
Yeah.
every chapter, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, perfect. It does seem quasi metaphorical, of course, right? But it is also the eye of the world. So I think the idea is that at least from that picture, the snake. I mean, does the snake turn the wheel of time? Sort of seems that way, like the snake would be turning the wheel of time,
It
but then
feels like if
turned
that
it
wheel turns, it's gonna chop that snake in half.
maybe, maybe. But yeah, I mean, I do think that is sort of another issue, is that you don't quite really know what the eye of the world is,
Right. This takes me
right?
full circle back to the prelude where I'm like, how literally am I supposed to be taking this stuff? I do not know.
Reading, find out, bro.
Read it
Reading,
fine.
find out. So I mean, I think obviously Rand and crew don't know what the Eye of the World is. I mean, we get a hint that it's a place because she mentions going to the Blight, right? And I
Mhm.
think the point of this end cliffhanger is to be like, we're going someone crazy, and Lowell and Moraine and Lan know where that is, and everyone else is, what are you talking about? And Lowell's like, we're gonna die.
Hmm.
So Yeah, I think that is the feel that he's going for, but I also do understand how it is discombobulating, especially since this is seemingly representing like the brand new climax of the
Yeah.
story.
Well, do we remember how I was gonna make my
Uh,
my annotations, not annotations, my reading guide,
right.
I guess, for like what you can
Yeah.
skip. Now I'm
What are you
like,
thinking?
guess what? You start at chapter 42. Just jump 600 pages
Oh,
ahead. Start on chapter 42. You're good. You're good right there. Story starts. What do you think, Jeff? You like that?
I mean, I'm not surprised you say that. I do think that running away from an unknown enemy, or like running away from an enemy, is also a viable story at the beginning. I do think that the two don't necessarily interlink though, which
Mm-hmm.
is sort of problematic.
Mm.
That you're one of you is special, and you got to run away because the bad guys want you. And now you're going to go face the main bad guy.
Mm.
Right? When all this time you've been running from his lesser minions.
Right.
Those two things don't quite seem to line up with each other, but hey, we got Moraine, so it'll be fine, right?
Let's do it. I'm pumped. I'm pumped now. Let's go to the
Well,
eye.
good. Well, good. We'll see if this carries you through for the
Let's
remainder.
take our teleporters, beam me up to the eye, and let's go. Let's do it.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I do hear about the waves. It's so interesting that it wasn't sooner because it really could have been. But anyway, as we said, lots to talk about in the second chapter. It's a really huge deal. I mean, just from a storytelling perspective, I think it's fascinating.
Mm.
This all like, we're going to point at B, not we're actually going to point C, which I think can work. But I, I
I'm
wouldn't
definitely
say that it's
happier now. I mean, as
absolutely him.
clunky as it
Yeah,
feels to make this sudden switch, I'm definitely
sure.
happier now, and I just wish it
Right.
was that way from the very beginning.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think it's a good ending.
All right, everybody. So, how many more chapters we got of this thing? Like 10? 10? Is it
Oh,
40,
yeah, not,
53, or
not
52? Let's check it out.
That's what I'm checking right
So,
now.
we're at
It's
40,
not that many.
50.
53. So 10.
10 exactly. All right.
Well, 10 or 11 once we read the
Just this
reactor. Yeah.
column right here. All right.
Yeah.
Ooh, and we're getting to the blight by 48. Maybe that's spoilers. I should
What are you
should
doing,
have
Steve?
looked at that.
You got these 11 chapters left. Don't read those. Don't read those titles. We already talked about it in the last one. Spoiler. What are you doing,
All
yourself?
right.
I will say, in fairness, to see that it takes them half the time to get to the blight, not so teleporty. But anyway,
Hmm.
um, we'll find out. We'll find out. Only 5 more recordings. Well, that's 11. We might sneak 2 together. Maybe we'll do one last one as like the big ender, and then we're gonna be at the show. So here it
Nice.
is. Let's all hold on to our hold on to our hats, hold on to our socks, hold on to everything. We got the end of the book coming, everybody.
All right. See you next time, everybody.
See you then.